kindness on all social media. And this show is a really special show. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity for all of us to come together and celebrate this show. It brings together change makers to help us celebrate World Water Day and Earth Month, which is going to start on the spring equinox, March 20th, and go through to our 50th anniversary of Earth Day on April 22nd. Please type into the chat where you're watching from. We want to acknowledge you and give you a shout out as our global family. And as I start to bring in our beautiful global family, I'd love to introduce the amazing Sue Blythe, who is the visionary behind the Welcome to We show, and just a visionary for so much goodness in the world. And I just want to invite her to share some of our beautiful guests. So thank you, Sue, for being here, and thank you for your vision of a world that works for all of us.
Well, thank you, Karen, and it sure is a joy to be here watching this Welcome to We show evolve over the years now. It's been about a year and a half. And so I'm just delighted to bring back Jennison Kip-Searcy, who is from the University of Florida and is the state coordinator for a program called Sustainable Floridians. And then we also have grandmother Shannon Crossbear, who is a water keeper. And since we're celebrating World Water Day, I believe it's the 22nd, yes, of this month. And so Shannon, I would love it if you could just bring us together so we can be fully present for this wonderful time together.
Thanks, Sue. And I just want to say hello to everybody. In my traditional way of greeting, we say, hello, my relatives. So all of you are part of my relations. And so I want to greet you that way. I know it's really hard to kind of be present, especially with all of the things that are drawing our attention. But I'm hoping that we can do our best together to kind of come into this room. And there's a lot of different ways that we do that, right? For ourselves, we might take a couple of deep breaths just to be here. We're here together, even though we're not physically in the same space. And we're being called right now in our world to uncover, discover, recover new ways of being with each other. And so we have this opportunity to spend this little bit of time together this evening or this afternoon, depending on where you're calling from, or seeing us on. And if you do have other people, share, because we want to bring as many people into this and at the same time be present right now for each other, because we have some great things to share. We have a new story that's emerging in the world, and we have some things that we'd like to tell you about that are happening that maybe you can be a part of, so that we can just have this whole new way of being come to fruition even faster than it already is. So my way of doing that is just to ask those that have come before me, and I'm going to say some things in my own language and some English to get myself centered to be here, because I want to be with all of you so badly. So, Chimigwech Manito, Nokomis Mishnomish, Bayanab and Gindamas Wadagonis. I ask the grandmothers and the grandfathers and the ancestors and those that came before to look down upon me and to take pity on me, because I'm just a poor human being that's trying to do the best I can, as are my relatives here in this time. I ask you to guide my words so that they can be healing and bring comfort and help and bring in this new way of being where we really discover what it means to be a human being and be on that path. And so I thank you, and I ask you for blessings for all of us today tomorrow and going forward. And I can turn it back over to Karen to just begin this whole conversation.
Well, I really feel very centered and very connected to everyone here right now. And I just want to acknowledge that and thank you, Grandma Shannon, for bringing that. It's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful and important message for all of us to really be in this moment and slow things down. You know, if we're going to go from a me society to a we society, we really, truly have to learn these 3 I's. And that's what this show is all about, is to find a way that we can inspire, inform, and involve. So Sue, will you share a little bit about our guests and let people know out in the audience, you know, how inspired you've become by these 2 beautiful women and the work that they're doing in the world. And just want to say how grateful I am to be co-hosting this show with the amazing founder of We the World, Rick Ulfik. And you can learn more about We the World at we.net. So if you want to be a part of this We team and help us go from a me society to a we society, that would be wonderful. Thanks, Rick, for being here.
Oh, thank you, Karen. And yes, I'm looking forward to this show as well. There's so many interesting aspects of it. And I do want to acknowledge that a lot of people who may be watching this are experiencing pain and disruption because of the coronavirus. And as you were saying, Karen, the idea of going from a me-based society to a we-based society is now pretty much on mainstream headlines, you know, in a sense, because it's become very clear that the health and well-being of each of us is dependent on the health and well-being of each other of us. And that is, in a sense, what we consciousness and we you know, what it means to be in a we society that prioritizes the common good. So, and of course that will affect all of our discussion about water with World Water Day, the climate crisis and Earth Month and all of these things. By the way, I wanted to mention, just so that people know, that Karen Palmer, who is our host, is a global kindness leader and a live stream social media expert who co-produces several popular online talk shows, including this one. And she is a best-selling author, and she is also coordinator of We the World's Campaign for Women. You can find her at globalkindnesstv.org. And also, I'm Rick Ulfik, and I'm the founder of We the World and the We campaign at we.net, co-creator of 11 Days of Global Unity. And you can get involved with We the World by going to we.net and collaborating with us in many, many different ways. So without further ado, let's go to Sue Blythe, who is a grandmother of 8, doing what she can to create a sustainable, just, and peaceful future for their grandchildren. As a co-coordinator of We the World's Campaign for the Environment and co-founder of the Florida chapter of Elders Climate Action, Sue is pleased to bring the Climate Collaboratory to the University of Florida for development. Welcome to the Welcome to We show, Sue Blythe.
Thank you so much, Rick. And it's wonderful to be here with you. As I mentioned, it's been about 1.5 years that we've been thinking about how we can bring people together and do some significant actions for um, creating this we society that we're all bringing our little pieces to, right? We each have a little part of it. And as we learn to put it together as a whole, it gets easier and easier to see. This coronavirus has certainly made it easy to see that we are all connected. We are part of one human family and one earth community with a common destiny. And I use the words of the Earth Charter often because I'm developing a educational program based on the Earth Charter. We're presenting it for the 20th anniversary of the Earth Charter that was launched in the year 2000. And the two women who are with us today are key people in developing this program. So Jennison, I met probably, it's been almost 4 years ago, and we were at a conference called Imagining Climate Change. And it was about some of the dystopian novels that have been written. And the authors were there to talk to an audience of, I don't know, a couple of hundred people. And there was nothing about, you know, let's tell a good story about what's possible. And so that's where I met Jennison. And we started a conversation that's been going on all this time about what we would like to see. And so what we're developing now, we call the sustainable, it's a course, an 8-week course that we're presenting together. I'm a community partner for a university program, or it's a, I'll let Jennison explain. But so we have, we've been developing this. It's going to happen in April and May. And so one of the people that we'll be bringing in to this conversation, and some of the people will be live. If we're able to meet live, we'll all be remote if not. And so we're able to bring in some of our friends like grandmother Shannon Crossbear from up in Minnesota. And Shannon and I we met here through the WE team and have developed a wonderful friendship. And it's just such a delight to have you both here. So I think, Shannon, why don't you begin? Because I know that you are what's called a water keeper. Is that right? And we want to understand a little bit about how you, with your Indigenous background, what is your relationship with water? And how can we be better tenders of the water?
Thanks, Sue. Those are great questions. I thought about that because, that term about, I don't feel like I'm a water keeper. And the reason I say that, I think the water keeps me. So I tend to think about this new time we're coming into. I think really challenges us, even with our language. I think going forward, we're going to have a different language for things. So, because when we change to a we way of being, it requires a different language than we've used in the past. And so, when I try to think about how could I not have a relationship with water, how could we not all? We are a water planet. We are born in water. We are created in water. We are carried 9 months in water, and then we're birthed in that process of water. And then our sustained life is in water. And all our relatives, human and non-human, are water-based, right? So our plants and, so this idea of water just is, I think what's happened is we don't have a relationship with ourselves, and so we don't have a relationship with water because we're like 80% water. So, so how are we challenged, especially at this time, to think about our relationship with all of the things that are life-giving and life-sustaining. And yes, this current virus that's in the world, from my worldview, relational worldview, is systemic of all the other things that are happening, right? And the opportunity that lies in that. Because I believe that we have access to other teachers and other leaders than what we've had in the past. And by that, I mean, when we develop a relationship with the water and the earth and the other beings, that inhabitants of this earth, there's a lot that they have to teach us about life, right? And we have distanced ourselves from that relationship. And I say we because I think I'm being very general with that. But we need to reestablish that relationship with water. So I'm going to take a drink of water right now. Because this is the first medicine. So for those of you that watch TV and doctor shows, what's the first thing? They wheel them into the emergency room and they hook them up with what? Saline. Why? What's saline? Water. Why? Because water is the first medicine. We don't think about that, So we think about what can we do to help each other in this time of this, with everything that's going on. How precious to offer somebody water, the first medicine. We need to replenish ourselves with water. We need, and when you start to have that kind of a relationship and you heighten your awareness about water, well, we take care of the things that we care about. Are we not even learning that now in this experience? The things that are pulling at our heartstrings, the things that are making it difficult, the most difficult, aren't the, yes, the economics, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's gonna, whatever, right? But what really hurts, right, is when we think our loved ones are in peril. And so, if we expand upon who we see as a relative, then we understand that we're all in peril. And that we collectively can change this story. An opportunity is right here, right now, and people are responding. Yes, you see all of the one hand of the panic and chaos, but do you not see how many people are treating people really beautifully? Offering to bring them food, to share their resources, what little they may have. And it's amazing. Singing from the balconies in Italy and this is our world, right? This is our world. And we are understanding it is we. So it's a very exciting time. And that's not to minimize the fact that we're going through a collective trauma. And this trauma in our very cells, in our DNA, in our genetic memory, is attaching to other traumas that we've experienced, whether it be 1 generation ago, 2 generations ago, multiple generations ago, or generations upon generations, and all that genetic memory. When a trauma like this happens in a collective way, it's like a little spark that ignites the reaction of those multiple traumas. And there's another part of the story, is that we are here. We survived all of those traumas, and there are avenues and ways and things that we can do that will help us in this current one. The biggest one being in community. And so, and water is a great connector, right? Because we all have it in our bodies and in our brains. And I thank Dr. Emoto for doing the experiments so that he could validate from a Western construct indigenous knowledge, right? So, and when I say indigenous, I want everybody to understand everybody's indigenous. Everybody's indigenous. We may be further removed from that experience of living in an indigenous way with an indigenous worldview of this interconnectedness, but we're all indigenous. So we have this opportunity to connect back through the water to that genetic memory. And it begins with just heightening your awareness. You know, it doesn't matter where you're at. When you pick up that water, set your intention. You know, Dr. Emoto showed that when you say, water, I love you, I thank you, I respect you, and you drink that water, that all of those little cells and molecules within the water are doing a dance, right? Inside your body. How miraculous is that? You know, and if you can do that to the water, and I can do that to the water within you or within myself, we got it. We could change the world. It's all about the water. and even that, when we say it's all in the water, we have to be very careful about our water sources because of that, right? So, you know, when we look at a system that no longer serves in our transportation of water and our attempting to clean water, right, that are no longer viable because those systems weren't made to take care of the pharmaceuticals that get dumped into them. And so when they say it's about the water, and they say in a large city, you're taking in a percentage of all of those chemicals that are mood altering, you know, it's about the water, you know. So everything that you can do begins though with your intention with the water within you. And so whether it's taking a shower, whether it's having an opportunity to make sure that you are using things that respect the water, that means not plastic, and you know, all of the things that we can do. And when we know more, we do better. So when I think of Water Day, I'm, of course, I'm partial to the water outside my door because I live on Lake Superior. It's my homeland. It's the cleanest, biggest, largest freshwater lake on the continent. Second only or the only one as large is in Russia. So we share that. We share that the formation, the time when this water source was carved out by the glaciers, the last glaciers that came through. So there's a real the earth holds memory as well, and I'm very fortunate to live here and to pay attention to the lessons of water. You know, to watch the moon pull at water. If it pulls at a body, if it pulls at the ocean, and it pulls at this lake that is in 3 states and 1 province, you think it doesn't pull on us? I wonder. You know, so we have all these lessons around us, and I think for me it's about I'm a water student. That's what, you know, and I hope I'm a good student. And I know I'm not done learning, because every day I learn something more about this water, you know, and the lessons that it teaches me, even about something that is weightless, but when I have to carry it, it weighs a lot. I carry my water, and I do that purposely because it heightens my awareness. So, and I want to give lots of time to Jennison to kind of share what she has to share. So, but I love you all. I hope that some of what I've shared has been helpful, and I just encourage you to, you know, take care of your water.
Oh, it's been very helpful, Shannon. Thank you so, so much for your wisdom. It's so beautiful, and what a timely time for us to be talking about this with everyone trying to get their immune system stronger. Water and gratitude, actually, gratitude, 50% of our immune system increases when we are grateful. So, you know, just going out into the water areas in your home, you know, and being grateful for if there's a lake by you, or if there's a river by you, or if there's the ocean by you, you know. I feel like one thing I want to just point out right now in this interesting time that we are in right now is that gratitude is really going to be something that people are going to really notice when they start noticing the things that we took for granted. You know, here in California, we could just go buy toilet paper and have no problem. And now we have a huge shortage here in California. I don't know if you do everywhere else, but it's almost impossible for people to get toilet paper. And, you know, we're just in a really interesting time. And I think people, as we watch this and as we listen to the wisdom of Jennison and Shannon and Sue and Rick and myself, you know, just really think about, what are you grateful for? You know, and what did you take for granted before this experience? I've been really thinking about that a lot. And I just want to say, Jennison is a resource economist with the University of Florida's program for resource efficient communities, specializing in energy and water efficiency. Jennison coordinates the statewide Sustainable Floridians Conversation to Action program, which is being adapted for the climate emergency. So Jennison, could you please tell us about your work with water efficiency in Florida and how your Sustainable Floridians course helps communities address the climate emergency that we all face?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Karen. And thank you, Rick and Sue and Shannon, for being part of this conversation and being such wonderful water leaders in our global community. It's such important work that you do. So I'm going to try to be very concise tonight, which is not my strength. But I want to start by asking our panelists and everyone here and anyone joining us to just close your eyes and picture in your mind the happiest place that you've experienced, that you've lived in your life. So think about all of your lived experiences, whether you're young or a wise elder. Think about that place where your soul is just the happiest. And I'm going to just give you about 15 seconds of quiet time to think about that place. Think about the smells, the sounds, the feelings. Okay. And so we won't be able to share everything that everyone out there is thinking of and the places that you're taking yourselves to, but this is an exercise that the Sustainable Floridians course that I coordinate, this is the type of exercise we tend to open our meetings with, our gatherings. And this particular exercise basically drives home how important the natural world is and being outside is. And often when we do this with a room of maybe 30 people, there might be one person who raises their hand and says that they were indoors, but almost everybody is outdoors. And when we think about their happiest place or happiest moments, they're always with loved ones. Seldom are they alone or even in solitude, but they might be in solitude with the natural world. So I wanted to open with that, reflecting back to what Shannon said about, I really appreciate how you said the water keeps me. I know my bio says I'm a resource economist, and there are all these technical differences between different types of alternative economists, but I think of myself really more as an ecological economist because I think in these systems and I think about how, so, you know, what I study is about how that natural world supports our human lives and our social lives and our economy. And so we can't have, you know, we cannot exist without that natural world and without water. And so tying this in to give an example of what the Sustainable Floridians Discussion to Action or Conversation to Action program is like, and it does mirror the inspire, inform, involve. We talk about inspire, engage, and act. You know, we use a lot of the same terms where we want to act with science-based information, helping inform our decisions, but we recognize that we have to be inspired before we can, you know, effectively move to action that really helps improve the public good and helps improve our individual lives. And so we have a module in the Sustainable Floridians program, that's the water module, and the title of it is Water, Florida's Lifeblood. And so when you think about water, it's really, it's a naturally renewable source. It's been around forever. The Floridan Aquifer provides fresh water to over 90% of Florida's population. So our tap water, our drinking water comes from the Floridan Aquifer. It's an amazing resource that people come from all around the globe to experience the beauty of our springs, which are the windows to the aquifer. It inspires writers and artists from all around the world to create these amazing, beautiful things that will inspire more of us to protect that water. And so I wanted to share that carbon dating studies have shown that 80% of the water in Florida's aquifer, it was recharged during the last glacial period. So it's always existed in some place in our, you know, universe and in our atmosphere, but it was over 2.5 million years ago that that water entered our aquifer. And every day we pull millions of gallons of water from that aquifer and in many cases put it into a plastic bottle and then ship it far away. So we are we're connected to that pre-glacial period every single day through that water. And then the other piece I wanted to share, a piece of data that I just kind of stumbled across this great resource the other day. It's a BBC, The Story of Earth. They have some really great statistics you can look up on your body. So we are carriers of the water and the water is carriers of us. And so I put in my vital statistics and my body is 55% water, 55%. And then you can also look at your, the cells that make you up and how that compares to the number of stars in the universe, in the cosmos, and just some really cool, inspiring ways to take scientific data and help, put into perspective how closely connected we are with one another and with these natural resources. And I want to close with sharing another statistic. I know I'm sharing lots of numbers, but to me, this is the way, we can really help inspire more action that moves toward this we culture and this we society. So I just read there was a study released today or yesterday on the effect of the coronavirus on Chinese air pollution in China. And essentially 75 up to 75,000 lives of children and elderly are estimated to have been saved by the reductions in air pollution over the last 2 months, by the measures taken by Chinese to, respond to this coronavirus outbreak. And that's a cost, that's a benefit that we don't see, directly, but it's also a cost. It's a cost that we don't see with the way we live our daily lives. So those are lives that would have been lost had the last 2 months been just business as usual in China, and the air pollution associated with that. Thank you for sharing your screen. Yeah, this is so coming back to, again, just to close on that, staying inspired, trying to, take a frame of what are the benefits of this? How can we learn from this? How can we move further and closer to that we society where we're actually valuing water and our natural resources the way we need to live more sustainably and to live richer lives? That's just kind of where I wanted to close as inspiration. So I know I'm not telling you a whole lot about our program and how we operate, but this sort of tells the story of the type of ways we facilitate these conversations, the type of information we bring in to try to help inspire individuals to work, not just within their own lives and their own families, but in their communities and their global communities to move toward more sustainable living practices.
Thank you. That was beautiful, Jennison. And the image that I was showing before is the concentrations of air pollution before the coronavirus, and after it's almost gone in China, just as what you were saying. Also, I actually love all those numbers that you were talking about with the story of Earth and all of that. And I think it's great for kids too, because when I was a kid, I loved dinosaurs and I loved astronomy and I loved all the numbers involved. And I knew all of them, 96 or 93 million miles to the sun, and, the diameter of Jupiter, and the 6 million light years to Proxima Centauri, the nearest star system, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I went on to become a math teacher. I mean, it's because of the excitement of these numbers. So I think it's great to talk about numbers.
Well, and I have 2 children who are both budding, aspiring mathematicians and people who want to save the world and, solve climate change. And I had written this down and I didn't share it because it's not directly related to water, but it is related to what we're trying to do with We the World, what you all are doing. So my son, Emerson, I found out after I named him, was born on Ralph Waldo Emerson's birthday, about 210 years later. And one of my favorite Ralph Waldo Emerson quotes is, a thousand forests lie in every acorn. I think that's about right. That's a synopsis of it. But essentially, that giving rebirth, every seed, every seed that we can plant potentially can give birth to 1,000 forests. And so I just think I love that beautiful analogy to what we are trying to do collectively.
That's great. Thank you.
And I wanted to just bring up something, Rick, that I found in media that I feel is another really beautiful sign for the media to be looking at a more we-based society. Stephanie Ruhle, who is a mom and she's NBC News Biz, she's a correspondent and MSNBC anchor. She's asked to everybody to take a breath in the middle of her programming. and she stopped. And Dr. Sister Jenna shared this on the tweet, that, and this is something that everyone can absolutely do, that's free and will help in this crazy time. Just take a breath. And then a comment from that was Tom Bossert said, and he was in bringing this together, he said, if we work together, this terrible moment could be our finest hour. So it's really amazing that we get to see everybody coming together. And I find that more and more people are realizing that we are all in this together, and that this crisis has made it so that we have finally gotten the experience of slowing down and actually being with our family and having these opportunities to be, they're telling us that we can go out in nature. They're telling us that we just don't go into the stores, we don't go into bars, we don't go into wine tasting, and we just need to stay home. And so it's a great opportunity, I think, for us to really be more kind to each other, to be more kind to our family that is in our actual physical home. I've been, I do teaching, so I've offered the teachers to do Zoom rooms with any of the kids who are dealing with any of this trauma and feeling anxiety and stress. So, anything we can do, we can find ways to use this opportunity to really, really find more ways to be compassionate and kind to each other, especially when we are in our situation of fear, because fear will just hold us in this block. And Shannon, I'd like to have you share a little bit about that. How do we deal with the fear? What are some of the things that people who are in pain and are fearful?
Yeah, I think, I love that you said take a breath, right? And that you shared that. And for a couple of reasons. One is, even in that, it is no accident in my mind that this is a respiratory flu. Okay?
Yeah.
What do we need to do?
Take a breath.
Take a breath, right? And where is our oxygen produced? In the trees, in nature, here's how it works, right? So take a breath, get into nature, opportunity. There's a gift here. Yes, it is painful. And sometimes when we're learning something, that is a part of what happens. And that's not to minimize it. And it's not to normalize the fact that we are experiencing a trauma, and that trauma, really is, it hurts, right? And it's scary. And we as human beings usually have two reactions, and it's fight or flight. So we're either ready to, no, it isn't true, this is not happening, you're wrong, I'm right, or we are like, I'm out of here, 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 and we're being called to react differently than we have in the past. And that's, so this whole idea of we're in this together, and that whole idea of talking about the opportunity that we have to really kind of deal with our historical trauma. I mean, this is the trauma, the big trauma spark, right? And so, and it calls upon us. And think about those things that you just said, Karen, that are so, no shopping, consumerism, run wild, right? All of the things that we're, it's like, The universe is like this really good parent that has said, okay, I've had it up. Okay. Yeah.
Enough is
guys,
enough.
yeah. Okay, I've had enough. You guys are not getting it, right? You're gonna suffer the consequences of your actions. That is natural law. Natural law, and nature teaches us. We have we have these other laws. They're silly laws, They're just really lots of them are. So especially corporations, those are just silly laws. Natural law says, there is going to be a consequence. There's a reaction for every action, and all of that kind of stuff. And here we are, So, and still, we have to be sensitive to the fact that this is a loss. And any loss, whether it be an individual or a way of life, has us grieving. There have been other points collectively that we've grieved, but we have an opportunity to do that differently now, to really be supportive of each other, to be understanding, to really encourage ourselves and each other to be in that place of love and forgiveness, and to find ways, and it may be a different language, right? To find ways to share the stories of how we've survived to this point, the stories about what makes us really good human beings, the story about how we are good relatives to each other, and those stories are out there. We just are going to elevate those stories so that we can continue with the story. Right. And I love the story that we woke up. We're waking up.
We woke up. Yeah, it's great.
We woke up and
well, even the fact that whole.
I get it, Mom and Dad. I get it. I get it. I'll start behaving.
Well, even the fact that we saw that go viral in Italy, and that we saw all these people out on the balcony who are in lockdown, getting out on their balcony with their little guitars and coming out and singing to each other, serenading each other, lifting each other up, that is the human spirit. That is the human family. And that is what we want to see going viral. And we want to see a peace pandemic, right? We want to see a peace pandemic.
And it's great. An integration, really, of all of the disciplines that we know. I see lots more intersect between disciplines. So when you talk about mathematics or science or other disciplines, and I see an opportunity to take different ways of explaining the world and arriving at a different collective understanding. That's why I say I don't even think we have quite the language for it, because it's evolving as we're evolving, as we always have. And so we're not quite sure how all that might look, but we have an opportunity because we envision it, right? So it's even more important that we nurture our loving, caring thoughts.
Yeah.
And all, and we're all in this together. We got to practice. Maybe we haven't been doing so well for a while. Oh, well, but here we are, and let's practice. Let's practice being practitioners of kindness, practitioners of, I had one of my sons that was here on this earth walk for a very short time, and at least the way that we look at lifetime at this point. But he wrote in one of his poems, he said, a line in it was, someday I'm going to learn what it means to be a human being. And I remember that line because.
Can you say it again? It was cutting out a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Someday I'm going to learn what it means to be a human being, right? And I think about that because I do think that you know, this is part of our collective experience. And this is part of what it means to be a human being.
Right, to stop being a human doing and start being a human
Right, and be
being.
a human being.
Um,
And
Yeah,
it means that we have compassion for each other and that we love each other and that we understand our relationship to ourselves and to each other, but also to the world, to the earth, to our other non-human relatives and the inhabitants, right?
Yeah, and I
Sue.
wanted to just quickly
Oh.
say that I'm sorry, Rick. You know, I think that's where these conversations really can serve as like, that's the catalyst where we're teaching each other different languages that we speak and that are invisible, that unveil these invisible connections. And it's like, once we get it, once we, you know, learn that other language that other disciplines or other, you know, people are speaking, and we can see those connections, that's where this, you know, pandemic of peace actually comes to life, right? It's where those sparks and those, you know, seeds are planted, because it opens a whole new world for how we can act and how those ripple effects of our actions can help others.
And Sue?
Yeah, I wanted to go back to what Shannon and now Jennison were saying about ways that we are telling this new story. And it may be that we are just beginning to get a language for it. But I see it, expressions through the arts are a wonderful way. And I wanted to acknowledge our dear friend, Janice Lucas, who was going to be with us tonight. Janice has a program called the Lead Coalition of Bay County in Florida. And Bay County was almost wiped off the map during Hurricane Michael. And the community came together the way you're seeing now, people coming together, even though we can't get together physically. The world is coming together and caring more about each other. But in their community, what happened was this coalition was part of a coming together to make sure that the basic needs of all the people in the community were served. And it came down to things like the food was being donated, but people just a block or two down the street had no communication, no way of knowing that the food was over there. So her job with her coalition was going door to door and saying, do you have food? Are you okay?
Yeah.
And that's what she's doing tonight with the same group, many of them young people.
And I did something, my neighbor, and you know, I mean, I'm Miss Kindness, right? And I know most of my family and neighbors and relatives here in our little town. But the lady across the street from me, who I always talk to and always wave to and always, you know, have, you know, just little bits of conversation with, I reached out to her and I said, you know, I never got your phone number, and I'd like you to have my phone number just in case you need me for anything at any time. If there's anything that I can be of service, you know, or even if you just want somebody to talk to. She lost her husband, and you know, her husband's passed on, and I realized this was an opportunity for me right here as we were coming together, a divine, you know, encounter where we were coming together, walking on the same street. I made sure I kept my 6 feet distance. And I said, you know, I've never actually asked you for your phone number. Can I get your phone number? And can I give you my phone number? Just so that we're right across the street from each other. So if you need something, I could run and get it for you. And she said, oh, that would be so wonderful. Thank you. You know, and it's a little awkward at times because we're out of we're not doing that anymore. It's not like the Andy Griffin show anymore. It's not like that. We just are not that kind of society, but let's see how we can move into that, back into that type of society. Rick, I'd love for you to fill us in on that, because you had this vision of We the World, and this this pandemic is an opportunity for us to really, you've said over and over again, We the World really wants to get involved in this, to be part of the solution and see how we can really, so what would you suggest people, I loved what Tammy just said, we are absolutely in this together. There is so much potential to this situation. We have to be open to thinking outside of the box.
Exactly. Well, that was really my idea of creating We the World, which was now 22 years ago, is the concept of people coming together. And, you know, at that time, people were thinking the only way that people can come together is because of a crisis. And of course, that's what's happening now. But I think, you know, what we've been doing in general with We the World is showing how and why it's great to come together, even if there isn't a crisis. And of course, there are policy ramifications for coming together as well. And I think it's important to talk about that. You know, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are these global goals that were designed to bring together. Oh, there you go, the circle of goals, Jennison. Yes. So that's a way that everyone on the planet can take part in improving people's lives and the lives of all life on the planet through those 17 goals. And with We the World, we did the 11 themes for change, which developed out of the 11 days of global unity. And of course, they intersect with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals quite heavily. I also want to mention this idea. For me, it's been an underlying concept with we and we consciousness that Shannon was talking about, what it means to be a human being, which is that my thinking is that hundreds of thousands of years ago, primordial human beings, and maybe longer before that, maybe, you know, Lucy was the name of the fossil that was discovered, I think it was 2 or 3 million years ago. And the idea that human beings, early human beings, started to gather in communities. And it was the survival of the community was innately thought to depend on the health and well-being of each and every member of the community. And it's that whole process of that survival that led to the evolution of our brains. And so it's like really hardwired in us, that concept that the health and well-being of the whole is dependent on the health and well-being of each member of our society. And I feel like that's been kind of suppressed in a sense by our culture. And it's a culture that someone named Rion Eisler, who wrote The Chalice and the Blade about goddess culture 5,000 years ago and earlier, she talks about moving from domination culture to partnership culture. And she has been a big supporter of We the World. She's been on our advisory board for something like 20 years or something like that. And it's, I think it's an important concept to understand that the domination culture kind of pushes us away from this we consciousness, you know, and pushes us, many of us, to be, you know, look into the mode of look out for number one, no matter what the consequences are for others. And so it's been kind of a struggle, right? And we only have, we have a fairly short amount of time to see if the sort of we consciousness and partnership culture is going to prevail. And if not, then things like climate change and the mass extinction of species may become irreversible. I mean, this is what scientists are telling us. We only have a window till 2020. So I think it's very important for us to make that happen. And I was wondering, maybe let's go into our mode of the show where we share about what we can do together that we can't do on our own. And looking forward to World Water Day on March 22nd, the equinox, March 20th, which starts Earth Month. Our dear friend who's no longer with us on the planet, John McConnell, was one of the select few who helped to launch Earth Day back in 1970. And John McConnell was kind of proposing that Earth Day start on the equinox itself, which makes perfect sense. The change of the seasons, that would be perfect for Earth Day. And so he proposed that. It didn't quite work out that way. So Earth Day tends to be celebrated on April 22nd. However, there are thousands of people and organizations that do celebrate Earth Day starting on the equinox because of John McConnell's suggestion. And what we proposed, at We the World, we proposed a few years ago was, let's call this Earth Month, that starts on the equinox and goes through April 22nd. And it includes World Water Day. So the first way that I wanted to share about how we can work together and what we can do together that we can't do on our own, it comes from our dear friend Heidi Little. And I'm going to share my screen and go to, share the screen. Sorry, I screwed that up. Okay, I got to go back. Sorry about that. Okay, here we go. So here we have the event and gathering and coming together that Heidi is organizing. It's called Love the Waters on World Water Day. March 22nd, make a team, give and receive with the waters, left hand over heart, right hand over heart. Anyway, you can see this. And the idea is that people on March 22nd can go to the body of water that they love that's near them, and they can share images, videos. There may even be a Zoom conference call with people. And I know we've talked about that with Shannon. And if you go to internationalchildrensmonth.com, you can get more details there. But anyway, I figured I'd start us off with that. And Shannon, I don't know if you want to comment on that. I think you were thinking you might go and participate in that, right?
Sure, yes. And any gatherings, if you can, and again, we want to be respectful because we don't know what our situation will be in terms of social distancing and the importance of that. So again, we'll be asked to kind of think about how we come together, even if we may not be in each other's physical presence. So, and at some point in time, all of us will be able to talk about, what was easy about that, what's difficult about that, and what we did to make it so. So find a body of water, and if you can have somebody with you, that would be great. The more the merrier, all of that. But what you're doing is encouraging the exchange. So in our newfound respect for all of life, it's respectful to do an exchange. Understand that you want the water to give something to you, you give to the water. So sometimes that, and that doesn't mean that you throw your trash in the water. That means you give them their best. What would you give your relative? You're the person that you care about the most. You'd give the best, right? The best that you have for your loved one. So do that with the water. Water, I love you. I thank you. I respect you. Heidi has the hand for consciousness purposes to help her, and to help us all to put your hands there for the denoting when you are asking for something and then when you are receiving something. Again, it heightens our awareness. But any water, if you can't get to an outside water source, if you have water in your home, just spend a few moments on World Water Day of putting that intention in that water. I mean, I think it's something every single person can do. It doesn't take a lot of effort. It doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't cost any money. You can just.
I love that, Shannon. And
Yeah.
as a mom who has kids home for who knows how long, trying to find activities, I think you just gave me a great idea. I think I want to create a virtual collage and paint it maybe with my kids with the different photos I have throughout my life and their lives of the water bodies that we've encountered. So I think on World Water Day, that's going to be my assignment for our family that we'll do together.
I'm a firm believer, Jennison, that there's that playing is very strongly connected to the word praying. So playing is only praying with an L, which is for love. So when you're playing with love.
Yeah, that's great. I love it.
And so, thinking about all the things you can do, create a playlist, all the water songs, right? All the songs, that every water song you can think of, and see how many people you can get to think about water songs, right?
And
water
if you go
writing.
to International Children's Month too, if you go to International Children's Month, it's a full platform of education, all kinds of awesome activities that you can go in. There's a whole year long of the year of water when
Storytelling.
Storytelling.
I've done, there's a series of stories that I tell, including how to sing to the water and how about the 13 grandmothers that walked around, or the one grandmother who started at Josephine Mandamin, who walked around each one of the Great Lakes, starting in 2003 to bring attention to the water with her copper bucket, and all the water walkers that joined her for rivers and walkers and oceans and songs. And so there's all kinds, so yes, Karen, that's a really great idea to remind people to go to International Children's Month and look at the water platform that's there. So
and also check out grandmotherscouncil.org too, because there's a lot of wonderful things on there too for people, and lots of again ways to get involved.
Have you noticed, Shannon, that on we.net at the top, the rotating images starts with the 13 indigenous grandmothers?
I did notice, Rick.
Yes, and they we have worked with them, and our dear friend who's no longer with us, Carol Hart, did a film about them called For the Next 7 Generations, and it was a really world-class documentary about the 13 indigenous grandmothers, and we have interviewed some of them during our 11 days of Global Unity telesummits over the years. I forget who it was, Pilgrim, Agnes Pilgrim, I think was one of them. Yeah. And she was very much involved with with water issues, if I'm not mistaken. Do you know who she was?
I do.
Yeah. So, so what are some other ways that we can work together? Go
Well,
ahead, Sue.
oh, Sue raised her hand first.
I'm sorry. And Jennison, you wanted to say something?
Oh, it was just a follow on to that, the idea around World Water Day of sharing the International Children's Month and these other resources. I'm going to take that tonight and share it with my kids' teachers who are sending me messages every day with activity lists. You know, they've got lists that suggestions for what parents can do with their children. So the more teachers we can share that with, and then they can share it out. If we could get that broadly, you know, out there, we'd be able to multiply the impacts very, very widely. So
Great.
Yeah.
And
So
Scholastic is also offering free programs for people also. So and Zoom is offering free webinar to all teachers. So I highly recommend using Zoom. It's a very awesome, and we have a really exciting thing happening that we're doing through Enlighten World. Enlighten World .online is a partner of We the World, and they are going to be doing a thing called Coming to the Table and Coming to Dinner, and we're going to all be meeting on Saturday night virtually in a Zoom room with our dinner plates and our beverage of choice, and we're going to have dinner together virtually, and then we're going to open the lines so that people can actually talk and share and really get to know one another, rather than seeing us live on a live stream, but they can actually talk to us, and we can all be in the same circle together. So I highly recommend doing something like that with the kids too. You know, doing something like that with the kids. Have a peanut butter and jelly party, you know, where the kids bring their peanut butter and jelly and they all sit down and they share, like, what happened today? You know, what kind of things were going on for you today? You know, and just learn how to communicate virtually, so that we take this opportunity to still feel connected.
And let's acknowledge our dear friend Arthur Kanigas, who's been sending some messages. And he's the producer of the film about Gary Davis, the citizen of the world. The World Is My Country, and his path in terms of creating media that is helping to create a better world, positive media. And he wrote in one of his messages just now about how seeing some dystopian films helped to lead him on the path to creating media and films that uplift and inspire people, rather than scaring them about a dystopian future. So thank you, Arthur, and many other folks. Sue, did you want to say a couple of words?
I would, and I think that Jennison and Shannon have both expressed some ways that we can work together. You were asking about that. Earth Day is coming up. Jennison's class with the Sustainable Floridians will be starting in April. And then I mentioned that in June, we have the 20th anniversary of the Earth Charter. So this is my focus for Earth Day. And I'd just like to read a paragraph from the Earth Charter, and thinking about how our Sustainable Floridians will be going out into the community to continue this climate conversation, or, you know, taking care of our whole Earth conversation. and the resources that we want to share so that people in the community will have access to these and can have some of these over the dinner table conversation, even if we're still isolated in our homes. So the Earth Charter says humanity is part of a vast evolving universe. Earth, our home, is alive with a unique community of life. The forces of nature make existence a demanding and uncertain adventure. But Earth has provided the conditions essential to life's evolution. The resilience of the community of life and the well-being of humanity depend upon preserving a healthy biosphere with all its ecological systems, a rich variety of plants and animals, fertile soils, pure waters, and clean air. The global environment with its finite resources is a common concern of all peoples. The protection of Earth's vitality, diversity, and beauty is a sacred trust. And that's what I want to talk about in our community. Is how do we acknowledge and honor and begin to live that sacred trust?
Exactly. So as we wind up, there's one more thing I want to share, which made me think as we were talking, because the Global Declaration of Interdependence that we the world launched with the launch of 11 Days of Global Unity was actually inspired by the Earth Charter. And at that point, that was in 2004, we actually spoke with the Earth Charter. Here, let me bring it up. And the Earth Charter, can you see that?
Not yet.
Is it up?
Yes, it's up.
Okay, good. So the Earth Charter, we worked with the Earth Charter, and they actually gave their blessing to us to create an 11-line declaration or pledge that is inspired by the Earth Charter. The Earth Charter itself is a long document. It took many years and sign off on just about every country in the world, all the indigenous peoples. I mean, it was a gigantic project. And but we did do this declaration. And as you can see, the picture there is Jane Goodall. She actually was one of the first people to sign our Declaration of Interdependence. So we're very happy about that. And actually tens of thousands of people have signed that. And you can go to we.net and click on sign the declaration and check it out yourself. So as we wind up, there are a few things that I wanted to mention that are coming up that are very exciting. We talked about World Water Day. And also, towards the end of Earth Month, there's going to be something called the World Peace Earth Day celebration, which is an annual event that normally takes place in New York City. And because of the coronavirus and the lockdown and everything, it is, we talked with the producer, Andrew Kane, who's the founder of Planet Heart, and we decided that we're going to do it online for the first time. I think this is like the 13th year. So that's going to be on April 19th, Sunday. So there's something to check out, and check we.net and the Global Unity calendar and various other sources to find out more about joining that. Also in April, the Welcome to We show is usually on the third Tuesday of each month. And in April, that will be April 21st. So I think we'll be back here, right, Sue? Same time, same station, to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, which is going to be pretty amazing. And there's so many other celebrations of that kind around the world. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'd like people who are watching tonight or later to just think about your own first Earth Day story. If you were around at that time and you can remember some of the feelings and activities that you participated in. And we'll be sharing some of those next month.
That sounds great. I will, when you mention that again, I will share some stories about the equinox Earth Day. I mean, that's one way that people call it. But there have been annual celebrations of the equinox Earth Day with a bell ringing at the UN at the moment of the change of the seasons. And unfortunately, this year it's canceled because of the coronavirus, you know. But that made me think of that. Also, coming up, there are many other things happening during Earth Month, and we want to remind you that you can get involved with all these inspiring activities by going to we.net, and to collaborate in particular with us as an individual or a group, you can go to we.net/partner, lowercase, and then either as an individual, you can join our We team, or as an organization, we can collaborate going forward there. Any other things coming up that anyone else wants to share? And also, let's let people know how people watching this can get involved with what you're doing. So Jennison, how can people find out what's going on with the course and all of the various things that are going on with you?
So contact me directly. Unfortunately, I'm not active on the social media platforms for several reasons, but just contact me directly by email. My email address, I believe it's in the announcement, but it's mjkipp@ufl.edu. And I'd love to hear from anyone out there who wants to be involved in any way.
That sounds good. How about you, Shannon?
Well, it's the same thing. You can find me on social media, but probably the best way to get a hold of me is by my email, which is sprospere@centurytel, CENTURYTEL.net. And I'd love to, visit with people to support what they're doing and to really talk about how we collectively are in this healing process and what we, as individuals, from whatever our disciplines and our knowledge and understanding are, can do our part to help mend the sacred heat of humanity. So,
And how about you, Sue?
Yeah, my email is Sue Blythe, that's Sue, BLYTHE, @we.net.
Terrific. And Karen?
Best way to get in touch with me is Karen Palmer at wetheworld.org. And I love to collaborate with anybody. We want to really expand our women's theme to call out the men and invite the men. We want to have women and families as our theme, to bring people together. And so that, like beautiful Shannon has shared with us, bring our relatives together and see how we can cross promote and really, really amplify the goodness and the great work that people are doing out in the world. So reach out to me. You can directly email me and I will get right back to you. And Rick, want to share our last little, oh, Shannon, did you want to share?
Yeah, just one thing earlier that I wanted to, so, Rick was talking about, or we all were talking about how community can come together. And there are some really great examples. And in Cook County here in northern Minnesota, they've just started a page where all of that is happening. Like there's people are going to check on each other. People are offering their groceries. People are offering to pick things up and deliver them. People are offering to provide needed resources. So just to encourage, that's one way that in this time that there is the spiritual part of this, but there's also the concrete resources that will help people. And so if you have those to share, be aware that there are those around you who may not have them.
Exactly. So what Karen was suggesting is that we finish up with the quote from our dear friend Jonathan Granoff, who was actually a nominee for the 2014 Nobel Peace Prize for his work on ending the danger of nuclear weapons with the Global Security Institute, which he's the president of. Anyway, he was the keynote speaker when we launched the We campaign and when we launched We.net. It was about 10 or 11 years ago. And the last thing he said is, I hope that we expands so much that there is no longer any them. So thank you. Thank you for helping us go from a me society to a we society.
Remember, we're all in this together, guys.
That's it. Thank you and bye-bye.